Now, so you can see right today, meaning we'll be doing chapter 1 from 5. So especially for those who are having exam like in the coming weeks, right? Definitely you're going to have chapter 1 in your first term. Okay, but those who are having exam later on, we treat this as just a revision, a normal revision. Now for chapter 2, I won't go through this seminar. Definitely there's not enough time. So chapter 2 here, I already put the QR. You can just scan it. And it will link into my YouTube channel, which this video actually is last year seminar, which last year actually I did chapter 2. Now, if you think this video a bit too long, if you go to my YouTube channel, right, there's this got photosynthesis video. So you can just search photosynthesis and then you can just, because chapter 2 photosynthesis is the most important part. Yeah, you can watch that video if you don't want to go through the whole process. But of course, go through it's going to be better because I go through 2.1, 2.2, 2.3 and do questions also. Okay. And then the questions that I did in this video here is I got include in these notes. So got notes, you can see here got notes, and here got question behind that. I can own self go and find. Okay, all right, we don't waste time, we already start. All right, so for chapter 1, it's about plant growth. So already written here, organization and plant tissues and growth. However, we only will be focusing on growth today. We won't really study about plant tissues because that part not too important. And yeah, due to time constraint now, of course, definitely. So 1.1 plant tissues, maybe later I'll mention a bit definitely, but in detail there, I won't go through already. So you got to read yourself epidermal tissue, ground tissue, and vascular tissue. What's my YouTube channel name? See? Behind. Can see right? Davin biology. It's here. Okay. Yeah. So you just go and search it. Then, okay, we still start with 1.2 So for 1.2, meristematic tissues and growth. So let's talk about growth first. I'll explain about what's meristematic tissues if you don't know. So growth, there are basically 2 types you're going to learn. Number one's called primary growth. Another one's called secondary. Okay, means like the first, basically is like first growth, second growth. So primary is always the most important one. So plants will undergo primary growth first, definitely. It's like you go primary school, they only go secondary. So primary growth, right, the importance, right, is to increase the length of plants. To increase the length, increase the height in general, means become long. But when plants become tall and long, right, you become unstable. Imagine you skinny, long like that. Wind blow, you still really tumble down. So therefore, you need secondary growth to help you increase the diameter of the plant. However, right, not every plant will undergo secondary growth. Okay, usually woody plants that have wood, they are the only ones that can undergo secondary growth. So usually woody plants are much more thicker compared to non-woody, like grass, for example, they are non-woody. Pandan leaf, banana tree, for example. Those are plants that don't have secondary growth. They said their diameter will be, smaller a bit. Okay, so number 1, meristematic tissues. So what is meristematic tissues? So you can remember meristematic tissues as baby tissues. Means like young, okay, but actually the correct term is young tissue. I'll just call it baby for easier for us to remember. So these tissues, right, they have no function. And they all look the same because they are babies. Just like us, when we all baby, then we all look the same. We all fat and botak one, right? So the same. So meristematic tissues, there are 2 types. You have apical meristem and lateral meristem. So apical is found at the shoot tip and root tip. So shoot tip, root tip, meaning the topmost part of the plant and the bottommost part of the plant. Okay, shoot tip, root tip. Lateral meristem is found at the sides of the stem. Now, side is not like on the side like that, but it's like when you cut it cross section and you look from the top, inside there are 2 rings. You have the inside ring and the outer ring. So these 2 rings are collateral meristem. So apical will involve in primary growth and lateral will involve in secondary. So right, these meristematic tissues, right? Okay, we mentioned here, length and increased length, increased diameter, just how we mentioned it. So these meristematic tissues, right? Inside, they have meristematic cells. So meristematic cells are basically the cells that form the meristematic tissue because a tissue will have same cell, like muscle tissue have muscle cell, epithelial tissue have epithelial cell. So same meristematic tissue will have meristematic cells. So these cells, right, they are baby cells, like I said. Okay, so they only can do one thing. Because they're baby, they don't know anything. They only can cell division. They can only undergo cell division. So their function, right, is to divide actively by mitosis. Means you just form more cells and more cells and more cells and more cells. So therefore, in apical and lateral, in the apical meristem, right? Since the cells here, so they are found at the tip, right? We mentioned. So the cells here, right, when they divide cell division non-stop, right? As you have more cells, you grow taller. Same here, as you have more cells, you grow longer. So it's the same for lateral meristem. So here, right, as I have more cells, I will grow inwards and outwards, and therefore the plant will become thicker, increase in diameter. Understand? Okay. Now, this meristematic cells, right, and meristematic tissues, right, later on, they'll start to become mature. Just like when we are baby, after that we will grow, when we become older, we become more mature. So as they become mature, they will form then just now the page number 2, that permanent tissues. So meristematic tissues, after they grow already, right, they will then become permanent. So this process they already mentioned here is called differentiation. So you just remember, to become permanent, they need to become different, right? As they grow bigger, right, all the cells, right, will become different. So when you're young, that time I say, right, they all look the same. They are just basically a very basic cell, a cell with a nucleus inside. Just when you're a baby, we all look the same. However, we all grow older as we become mature, right, we all have different roles, different functions in the society. Some of us are doctors, some of us are engineers, some of us are teachers, some of us are whatever, something different kind of occupation. So here the same. When they become permanent tissues, right, they will be different than each other. You see, some become epidermal, some become vascular, some become ground, and each of them got different functions. Okay, so that's how permanent tissues are formed. They form from meristematic tissues. As they divide already, later they differentiate. They become specific. Just like when you grow older, every one of us study different things to become different profession, for example. Okay, so but yeah, as I said, I'm not going to go through permanent tissues. Actually, you just go through their functions and all. So for today, our main focus is growth. So one thing I haven't mentioned here is, right, lateral meristem, right? Just now we mentioned you've got 2 rings, right? The inner ring is called vascular cambium, and the outer ring is called cork cambium, which later we'll learn about it lah. Okay. Now, primary growth first lah. So primary growth, the shoot tip, this is the shoot tip, and this is the root tip. Okay, so these are the apical meristem tissue, which consists of meristem cells. Now, first thing is, you must know how to label these 3 zones, because you got X, Y, Z, X, Y, Z. So from shoot, right, we go like this, and from root is like that. Because root, the tip is at the bottom one, shoot, the tip is on the top. Okay, so first, so my notes here, right, I put it in like question form like that lah. So we, instead of just I highlight everything, we get to write together, so it can easier for us to revise and remember. Okay, number 1, name the growth zone X, Y, Z. So those who just come on, page 4. If you got the notes already, page 4. If don't have, try to write down with me. Okay, got write only can remember. If you just stare at me, you cannot remember anything one. Okay, don't have notes, please write down together. Okay, so shoots and root, there are mainly 3 zones. Right? The first zone is what? Zone of? Come on, let's do this together. Zone of what? Cell. First zone is zone of growth. Anusha, your number 2 and number 3 is correct, but the first one is wrong. Cell division. So to grow, you need to divide. So the cells here will basically divide non-stop. So it's called zone or cell division, same down here. Okay, so by the way, this is X, Y, Z. So this is how the cells look like at each zone. So at the first zone, the cell just divide mitosis non-stop. Okay, now number 2, zone of So after when the cell divide already, what they do next? Now they start to become big. They start to expand. So this is called zone off. Yeah, a lot of you already very impatient already. Yeah. You're like, it's not so easy lah. Write all the answers. Okay, yeah. So it's zone off. Cell elongation. All right. Now, Zach. Last one. Okay, sure, yeah. Zone off. Cell. Yes, correct. Differentiation. So just now we just mentioned differentiation, this thing, right? So at the last zone, once the cell finish forming already, it will start to differentiate to become permanent tissue. So at the third zone, right, these baby cells will start to grow into got function punya cell, permanent punya tissues. Get it? All right, so we're going to continue. Now, then we need to agak know the function of each growth zone. So the function is related to the name exactly one. So number one, the cell divide. Why? Why you want to divide? Of course, you want to increase the number of cells. Yes, correct. But why I want to increase number of cells? Got more cells, then how? Why I want more cells? What's the function of having more cells? What does more cells give me? Who can tell me that? Why do we want more cells? For growth, exactly. It's the same as human, right? How do we grow? By having more cells. Okay. Increase in size, length. Yeah, you also can say increase the length. If you look at actual questions, right? If they show you shoot for that particular question, then you can say, yeah, to increase the length of shoot. If they show roots, you also can say increase the length of roots. Actually, also can. Yeah, I'm going to say increase length also can for this thing. Okay, next, elongate. Very simple. So for my students, right, we just did this in class. Right? So long means like grow, the size. So it's just basically to, as you can see in the picture here at Y, the cell become bigger, right? So they increase the size of cells. Because as the cell grow, then you grow. Okay, I'll read that one later first. I haven't reached that part yet. Later we will explain. Okay, I'm too so excited first. Okay, Zach. So Zach, as you look at the diagram, they start to differentiate. They start to become got function, different cells already. Right? Okay, so we write like this one. So it's basically to differentiate into, you can say, specialized cells with specific function. So every cell here is specialized. Like they got their own role. Okay, it's like, doctor is to give people medicine, cure people's sickness. Very specific, very specialized function. So every occupation got specific roles. Same with the cells here, right? Every is very specialized for their own specific function. C, state the cells involved in the growth zone and its characteristics. Okay. The cells involved. All right. Can you guys name me what are the cells here? I mentioned one just now. What are the cells here? They have a name. They are not called root cells, shoot cells. A very specific name. Yes, Patrick. Correct. We mentioned already, right? Meristematic tissue got meristematic cells. So since here is meristematic tissue, shooty rooty are meristematic tissues. The cells is the same name. Meristematic cells. Moving on, next one. State the cells involved in growth zone X. So growth zone X, the cells. Oh, I'm reading the same question. The characteristics, I'm so sorry. So, okay, who remembers the characteristics of these cells? So remember, these cells, they are baby cells. They all look the same. Yeah, so how are they the same? What are their characteristics? Who remember? So if they are baby cells, right, number one, all of them with very thin layer of cell wall. Baby ma, so you thin no. Okay. Another thing is, it's not very obvious one. I want you guys to look. Okay, sometimes the answer is right in front of you, right in the diagram, right? So if you look at these two diagrams, this cell and the cell that forms in the cell elongation later, zone of cell elongation later, what's the most obvious difference you can see? The most obvious difference you can see between the cell in X and Y. Besides the size, of course. Yes, correct. Jacqueline, Patrick, Melker, Josh Dyer, and Queen Ying, the vacuum. Besides bigger, right? You can see the vacuum. See, this one big vacuum here. This one don't have. Actually got lah, but it's very small, where you can't really see it. So you see small vacuum. The vacuum really haven't grown yet. The cell is very small. And one more you can say is large nucleus, even though you don't really see it here, huh? But they actually have a large nucleus because the nucleus mainly helps in cell division. So since they are actively dividing cells, the nucleus is slightly bigger. This is more active. Okay. D, how the cells in growth zone Y increases in size. Oh, okay, so now the size, we talk about the size. Yeah, it's bigger here. So the size bigger is mainly actually due to the vacuum. Because the vacuum becomes big, then it becomes bigger. Okay, but can you guys tell me, for the vacuum to become big, what does it absorb? So I think most of you should know what's inside a vacuum. What does it absorb? It absorbs, exactly, water. So we're going to say that how the cells increase in size is by absorbing water and nutrients. Then the small vacuoles. So at the beginning, the vacuoles are vacuoles. So it's plural. There's a lot of small vacuoles, not just one. So we say the small vacuoles. Okay. Vacuoles merges to form large vacuole. Yeah, you can say by osmosis also because I'm absorbing water. And then we name this process. So small vacuole become large vacuole. The process, remember, is called? Yes, it's called vacuolation. So it's really true vacuolation. So that is what we did explain. Okay. So here, by the way, I prepared like a few common questions you'll see them asking for primary growth. Honestly, primary growth, right? The questions they can ask is not a lot because very simple only their things. Okay, yeah. So we will do one example question now. So I briefly show you how question will ask for this part. Okay. So let's look at page. Very simple one, page 22. The questions are of course slightly different than in front. So briefly I show what kind of other questions they can ask, but also very simple one. Right, A. Name the type of meristematic tissues found in the above diagram. So what is the type of tissues found? Meristematic. Now there's two meristematic tissue we mentioned earlier just now. So the meristematic at this shoot tip is called, yes, Jacqueline, yes, Yingchen, yes, Patrick, very good. Apical meristem. So here we mentioned already got two types of meristematic. So they're showing shoot tip. So there is this one. So that's the meaning of type of meristematic. Then what is the type of growth shown above? So what kind of growth? Primary, of course. Exactly. Now, this kind of rule of cells in zone P. So, okay, can you guys tell me what the cell do here? The cell divides, right? Yes, exactly. Zone of cell division. Okay, so the rule here very simple, like most of you know already, is to mitosis. But now 3 marks is quite a lot. So we need to mention one by one. So first, we need to say the cells. Like I wrote for you just in front, right? Zone of cell division, what do they do? So the cells here divide actively by mitosis. Why? So we just now also got written in front. I divide, so I got more cells. So it's basically to increase the number of cells. But why? Why I need one more cells? So I think some of you will mention or what? Yes, grow lah. Or since this question is showing you shoot, you can say to increase the length of shoot. Also can. So we write this one lah. To increase the length of shoots. Z. Vacuolation is a process that occurs in zone Q. What is meant by vacuolation? So we've just written it in front, right? Exactly the same thing, right? So vacuolation is what? Your vacuum, ching, then pum. So they just allow merge to become big. But before they merge to become big, right? The vacuum does what first? So like we mentioned, right? Vacuum mainly is store water one. So you can first say the vacuum absorbs water and minerals to increase in size. So they start become bigger and bigger, then they will merge and then become big. So same as just now, this one exactly. So the small vacuum, what they do, merges to form large vacuum. Come write yourself. Don't keep copy one. Okay. Now, what is the importance of vacuolation during growth? Okay, so why my vacuum won't become big? Vacuum become big got what importance? So what do you guys think? Why does the vacuum become big? And how, for growth, how does it help grow? The cell become turgid. But turgid is more of like support, right? So if you just say but for growth, right? We just say it is to you can say become turgid okay, we write both So you can say so that the cell becomes turgid and increase the size mainly, of course. So vacuum big, the size is also big so that's how the cell become big, is by relying on the vacuum to absorb water, push it become big. Okay, last one. Now I want you guys to think a bit. They say state the shape and structure of cells in zone R. So first I ask you this do you think the shape and structures of the cell in zone R are the same or not? Are the cells here the same, or the cells here? Yes or no, guys? Come on, everybody try to give me your answer. What do you think? Yes or no? Do you think the same or not? Okay, all of you say very good. No. Why no? So what caused them to be not same? Yes, exactly. They already undergo what? Differentiation. They differentiate already. So that's why they're different. That's why they're not the same. That's how, remember, zone of cell differentiation. So yes, they have exactly checking correct. They all become specialized cells already. They're all different. If you ask P and Q, then yeah, of course they are the same. They are baby. Here different already, right? Like last time, all of us, we study the same thing. We study BM, BI, Sejarah, Biochem, Physics. Okay, but when you come to uni, all of us study different, right? Some study engineering, some study doctor, medicine, depends, right? So you can say the shape, you can say the cells have specific and structure. Or you can say have different shape and structure to carry out different specific function. So the question didn't ask you to explain, they just state only, so they are all different. But if they ask you to explain why, because the cells have, here's the explanation, have undergone the differentiation to become specialized cells. If they ask you to explain, but this one they didn't ask you to explain, so the shape and structure, they are different, they are specific. Okay. Yeah. So okay, this one we try another one. Okay, this one, even though like for my students, I already did this before, right? But now I just mentioned one time because quite important one. You can try to look at page 24 once you're done. Okay, this thing, the drawing one, So draw the difference of vacuum in zone 1 and zone 2. So obviously, the which vacuum is bigger? Obviously, which vacuum is bigger? So very easy, right? Of course, zone. Which one is bigger? 1 or 2? They ask you to draw 1 and 2 punya vacuum. Who vacuum bigger? Of course, is zone 2. Right. So we will say, we will draw the nucleus first. So zone 1, you're going to have many tiny vacuums, something like that you can draw. And in zone 2, the vacuum, like that. That's how you draw. Okay, let me try one more. Question 7. Again, you draw this first. Do we need to label? This one don't need. They didn't ask us to label. Unless they say draw and label, then yeah. Usually question asks to label, then only we need to label. Then this one. Okay, A, you do yourself, same thing, zone, that one easy. So B, 1.2 shows the type of cell that can be found in the shoot of a plant. Now, which growth zone does the cell in 1.2 can be found? Explain your answer. So zone of cell division, elongation, differentiation, 1, 2, 3. So which zone, 1, 2, 3, this cell can be found? What do you think? It's quite simple also, actually. Come on, guys. Yes, it's definitely. Those who answer all very good, all correct, zone 3 lah. Because this is definitely not like meristematic, because meristematic is all squarish, look the same. Okay, if zone 2, the vacuum will be slightly bigger. Okay, like that. That's the difference. But when zone 3, there are many different types. Remember, they're differentiated. So long it's not squarish and big vacuum, then definitely zone 3. So, but this one definitely is xylem. It's a xylem. Okay, so definitely is zone 3. So no cell differentiation. So explain your answer. Because this is a specialized cell. Okay, because the cell in 1.2 has undergone special differentiation to form a specialized cell, which is a xylem cell. Okay, then I want to try this one with yours, because even though it's something that's not what we learned in this chapter, but it's related to what we learned in your Form 4 before. Okay, next one. What is the cell organization? Next page, sorry, here, page 26. What is the cell organization level of a leaf? So do you all know how to answer this one or not? Some of you all, I did this question with you all recently only. Remember or not? How do I answer this question? Cell organization level. Why I will repeat this quite a few times because this is something very easy and a lot of you don't know. So if they ask you cell organization level, yes, Jacqueline, correct. It's the cell, tissue, organ system, that one. So leaf is what? Cell, tissue, organ system is an organ. The answer is organ. So cell, tissue, organ. Now, how do I know it's an organ? So explain. Now, the explanation actually is just the definition of organ. So when I look at leaf, how come I know it's organ? Because what? How do I know it's an organ? So like I say, stomach is an organ, brain is an organ. If I look at it, why do I know it's an organ? What makes it an organ? Because yes, you got to talk about what is it made up of. It is made up of, okay, don't say cell and tissue, tissues can already. Okay, made up of the previous level, made up of, and in an organ, right, you have different tissues. Yes, different tissues. You have, see, you got the palisade mesophyll, you got the spongy mesophyll, you got vascular, you got the epidermis, so you got different tissues forming an organ, right? Made up of different tissues. Then the second point, which work together. TGT here is together to carry out specific function. Okay, come back to our notes. Page number 5 now. Type of plant growth again. So primary we done already. Now secondary. Okay, so first we go through the difference first lah. Now you can see the notes here might be the same as like what we did in class, but I put a lot of blank lah. So we will like write to revise that instead of just highlight everything. So we will write a lot of things like I say. So difference, primary, secondary growth. Of course, when does it occur? Primary growth occurs after germination, means when the plant germinate, you start the primary growth. So when the seed germinate, it will start to grow the roots, grow the shoot, like what we just did in chapter 5. Right, the seed germinate, the shoot go up, root go down. So that's primary growth, increase the length. Now, secondary growth, of course, is after primary, right? Like primary school already, then secondary. That's simple. You grow tall already, then become thick. So just how we mentioned it, increase length, increase diameter. And then primary growth occurs at the apical meristem, at the tip we mentioned already. Secondary occurs at the lateral, which is two rings, vascular and the corp can build. Later we will do this. Now, primary growth and secondary growth occurs in what type of plants? All plants for primary and perennial for secondary. If you're wondering what's perennial, now later we will mention this. But perennial plants are generally plants that live for more than 2 years, and they are mainly woody plants. So that's why you like. I mentioned just now, I'm not sure. That's why we only see woody plants that are thick. Okay, you don't see not woody plants. What am I saying? Yeah, woody plants are usually thicker than non-woody because they are the only they are the one that can only undergo secondary. And usually they live very long, more than 2 years. Okay, later we do this. Then primary growth is limited, unlimited for secondary. So this is like human and that. Since primary growth is increased in height, length, just like human, there's a limit of how tall we can grow. Correct? Same. But there's no limit of how wide you can grow. Same like plants. The more you eat, the wider you become. And the last one is the growth curve. So the growth curve is a typical sigmoid curve, S-shaped curve that you see in human also. Sigmoid. Secondary is an annual series of sigmoid. Meaning every year, the sigmoid will repeat. Since secondary can occur for many years, like we mentioned, more than 2 years, that's why it will keep on repeating. But of course, over the years, it will get slower and slower lah. So straight away, we come here. Secondary growth punya process. But before we go to secondary growth, right? Okay, let's mention a bit about primary growth first. Because you can see, right, the primary growth stem and root structure is very different than secondary growth. Because once you undergo secondary growth, you form all the extra tissues here. So before that, this is how a stem and root look like during primary growth. And since it's only primary growth, right, they have very basic tissue only, which is primary xylem, phloem, and cortex. Okay, because they are still young, they don't produce a lot of specific complicated tissue. So only have basic punya xylem, basic punya phloem, and cortex. So this is stem, and this is the root. So this one you all should know already lah. Xylem always in the inside, phloem always on the outside. But since it is primary growth stem, that's why the root, the xylem and phloem, we call it primary xylem, primary phloem. Understand? And then what is cortex? Cortex is the meat of the flesh. So below the skin, below the epidermis, you have cortex. Right? Then inside it, you have phloem and xylem. So these are the three things you must know to label lah. And of course, between the phloem and xylem, you've got the ring that we mentioned just now, called vascular cambium. However, this ring during primary growth haven't stick together yet. Later, when you will stick together. Now, not yet. So vascular cambium, by the way, is the one that forms your xylem and phloem, and it's also the tissue that separates the xylem and phloem. Okay. Then this one, roots. Now, root, like I told you before, even the structure look completely different, right? But you just remember the position. Xylem is always on the inside. Phloem is always on the outside. So it might look completely different, but we remember position. And vascular cambium is between the xylem and phloem, as always. And then your flesh, your meat, is the cortex. Then your skin epidermis. Same. Okay. So here I go add another thing that last time my notes don't have one, is the root punya structure after secondary growth. That time I need to teach your step, right? But however, I got see quite a lot of questions they ask root. Even it's not very common, but yeah, we will go through it lah. Okay, so first you can see now in secondary growth, you're going to focus on the two rings: the cambium, the vascular cambium, which now becomes the cambium ring, and the cork cambium, the two rings. So for the just now primary growth, right, we focus on the apical meristem, the shoot tip and root tip. So lateral meristem is the one that involved in secondary growth, which is the two rings. So like I told you just now, when these two things undergo mitosis, you will form inner layer cell, outer layer cell. Same over here, and that's how it become big. Okay, but before all of this happened, okay, I already written here, the first thing that happened is your vascular cambium mitosis form cambium ring. So from the start until the end, mitosis is something that is going to keep on repeating, because mitosis, they only got growth. Like I say, when these two ring mitosis, they'll form one inner layer and one outer layer tissues. So total, there'll be 4 new tissues we're going to mention over here. Because cambium ring will form one inner and outer. Here also will form one inner and outer. So let me summarize this whole thing first. To easily remember this thing, okay, this is how I will teach you all. So the two rings, vascular cambium and cork cambium. So vascular cambium will first mitosis to form the ring first, cambium ring. And cambium ring will then only mitosis to form one inner and outer. So the new inner and the new outer tissue are just called secondary xylem and secondary phloem. So remember, just got primary phloem, primary xylem. Now it's just secondary though. Then for cork cambium, it's already a ring. So you don't need purposely mitosis to form a ring. So they straight away, mitosis form one inner and outer also. So the inner one is called secondary cortex. And the outer one is called cork, which eventually forms the bark of the tree, means the skin of the woody stem. All right, so that's the whole thing. Summarized in just like what few words there. Okay. Now, by this you can ask for essay like around 8 to 10 marks like that. So by remembering this, right, you can write 8 to 10 marks. Okay, but how we're going to write it? Okay, like I say first mitosis form cambium ring first. Okay, then the cambium ring will as you can see, mitosis to form inner and outer tissue. Now, before I write down, now I'll make sure you must know how to label this thing. So look at this one first. So this was primary xylem, primary phloem. When I want to form secondary xylem that time, right? The secondary xylem, okay, resetting first, will form like this, because the ring mitosis to form the new tissue. Once the mitosis form the tissue, right, then you got secondary xylem here. So the primary xylem will be pushed inwards. Same with the phloem. The secondary xylem phloem will grow like that. So pushing the primary phloem outwards. So you just need to remember, primary will always be pushed further away from the ring. Secondary will always be closer. Okay, so secondary will be closer, primary will be further. As you can see here, the secondary xylem here and secondary phloem here. Primary xylem being pushed inside already. See, they label here already. And your primary phloem we push outside. So just remember, further away primary, closer secondary. Understand? Can? Then let's explain this. Can, right, guys? Understand, right? Know how to label which is which. Primary further, secondary closer. All can I do understand? Yeah. All right. So the cambium ring, okay, I type for you lah. So you say the cambium ring then undergoes same lah, mitosis, or you can say continue mitosis, also the same, to form secondary xylem and secondary phloem. Okay, not yet finished yet. So once you mention these two, of course, consider 1 mark each. Then your secondary xylem will form another thing. So don't forget to write this also. You say the secondary xylem then forms this one forms root. So remember we said that only woody plants have secondary growth. That is because only through secondary growth you can form wood. Because only through secondary growth you will have secondary xylem, and then secondary xylem actually is made up of wood. So those plants that don't undergo secondary growth, right? They won't have secondary xylem, means they won't have wood. Because wood, as we mentioned many times, is thickened by this thing called lignin. Lignin is basically fiber, wood fiber. Get it? So you could explain that they're made out of lignin, which, since wood is hard, as we know, it provides mechanical support. That's why woody plants are generally more stable, more stronger lah. Next, the cork cambium, same. So it will mitosis, form one inner layer and one outer layer tissue. The inner layer you can see is called secondary cortex. So I form another layer of flesh inside, and then cork is the outside one. So same, we will say the core cambium also divides, or you can say undergoes mitosis to form inside punya secondary cortex and outside core. Okay, then the cork will then form something called the bark. So eventually the cork was become harder and thicker, which is the bark, the outer skin of the tree that we touch. That's the rough, thick structure. So bark, of course, is thick. So the important function of this is waterproof to prevent water loss. So this is thick. Now, other than prevent water loss, okay, once you finish copying already, right? The next page also going to briefly explain other functions regarding the bark. So this is very strong, very thick, especially. It doesn't just prevent water loss. You see here also, it also can protect against insect invasion, insect from biting it, and also protect it against external temperature. Like if it's too cold or too hot, yeah, this thing can protect it. That's simple. Okay, and done. So just remember this thing that I draw for you. Of course, behind here I got form one more wood and bark. The bark is here. Very simple. I summarized for you already. Now let's look at the roots right now. So primary punya roots is this, same as this. Okay, secondary one is a bit different than stem. Now this is like the undergo secondary growth halfway, then this one will be the complete secondary growth. But I found that if you look at this picture, it'll be very confusing. So I think you straight away like draw this one, you can ignore this actually, because question will only ask this one. This one is in your textbook. But like I say, this one will be more important. Okay, so we look at this one more time. So you can see your primary xylem is in the middle. Okay, this primary xylem, right, you didn't draw like this one here. This one like a cross like that. Right? Okay, because this one, right, is actually like this. Don't know how to explain. I draw, then you understand. So it's actually like that. It's actually the same. Just the shape a bit pattern only. So maybe I change color, you can see more carefully. Like that. More clearly. Understand? Yeah, it's like a cross, like an ambulance like that. Exactly. So that's where your primary xylem is. Then here's your primary phloem. This 1 dot, 2 dot, 3 dot, 4 dot. And then actually, right, you have, okay, when I draw this back again, so this line that I'm drawing is actually the vascular cambium, and your primary xylem is actually inside here. So you go label the line here, and that is vascular cambium, see? So during secondary growth, your primary, your primary xylem is still there. Same place, never move. Question might ask you to draw. There's a small chance for it. Okay. Then your secondary xylem is here. Your vascular cambium will be here. So same like the stem, right? Secondary xylem is inside. Primary xylem is inside. Secondary xylem is closer to the ring. Okay, then what about your phloem? So just like just now, same, your primary phloem will push further away, right? And then your secondary phloem is closer to the ring. So your primary phloem, I see these 4 dots, is 1, 2, 3, 4. We push all the way until the end over here. So it will be something like that. See, here is push halfway until here already. So basically you push all the way until here in the end, which is 1, 2, 3, 4. So your secondary phloem is actually here. This whole thing is secondary phloem. So I label for you. Primary xylem, secondary xylem, vascular cambium, secondary phloem, primary phloem. Can or not? So same you can see the primary phloem further away, the primary xylem also further away from the ring. Then closer to the ring one is your secondary. Done. Okay, a little bit more things we go through. Then we will do secondary growth question. Okay, come on. Page 7. The importance. So primary growth, secondary growth, what importance? So just now we already mentioned. See this one. Okay, use another color. 1, 2, 3. So primary growth is for the plant to increase the length. But increasing the length, there are two ways. One is become tall, go up. One is become long, go down. So that's why here is one is achieve maximum height. So if the shoot can grow up, it's of course for sunlight to carry out photosynthesis. So root is to go down because you want to first absorb water and mineral salt. Okay, then besides becoming long, right? So you can see, right, as the plant becomes long, it needs xylem and phloem to transport water and the organic substance, the glucose. That's why you need basic punya phloem and basic punya xylem. That's why it's called primary phloem, primary xylem. So since the plant is still young, still small, so the xylem phloem they form is called primary, which is basic punya, basic xylem, basic phloem. And secondary, same as just now, increase diameter. As you become thicker, you'll be more stable. And other than that, it's not just becoming thick to increase the base area, but as you become thick, you have wood, which makes you also stronger. Okay. And they say here, produce secondary phloem, secondary xylem. So what's the purpose of secondary phloem and xylem? Because as the plant goes bigger, you need more xylem, more phloem to increase the demand of water, mineral, and organic substance. Meaning as you grow bigger, right, you need more water, more organic substance. So that's why you need more phloem, more xylem. Also, that's what the secondary phloem and xylem is for. Okay. All right. Then bulk, we already mentioned the function just now. Okay. Now the last thing here, annual growth rates. So we will mention this before for my students. It's basically like the rings at the stem. And we all know, right? This is basically to count the age, estimate the age of a tree. So, as I told you before, not every tree we can use the rings to count the age. Right? Only plant that can undergo secondary growth, meaning only woody plant. Because the rings that you're looking at are secondary xylem. So you can undergo secondary growth, form secondary xylem, then only you have the rings. Okay. Number 2. Okay, who remember or not? Not necessarily your woody plants you can form the rings. Usually what region, where plants at which area only can form this annual growth rings. Only where? Only summer, spring. Okay, meaning those kind of 4 seasons, those temperate regions, those places that have 4 seasons, because these rings are produced, different color rings are produced according to different seasons. Okay, so you must have temperate must have seasonal region we will say. Yeah, so Malaysia punya tree, if you cut it, you'll probably just get one brown color patch inside the stem, because Malaysia from beginning of year into year end is the same weather, it's the same climate, it's just hot, right? So you won't have different rings, because different colorings, I say, form due to different season. So basically, spring, early of the year, whereby usually the condition is more suitable, the plant will grow better. And year end, whereby usually is colder, it's less suitable, and the plant doesn't grow very well. Now, however, I want to mention this thing, right? In our textbook, they say during spring is good condition. And this one, right, they write as summer, which I don't really agree, because summer actually is quite suitable for plant to grow. Summer is like our weather here, right? Plant grow very well. So if you want to write summer, right, actually you must say late summer, as the weather start to become cold as I move towards autumn. But I still think it should be winter, because, right, if you remember, right, the perennial plants we learned here, right, if you look at our text, right, here they say winter. But I don't know why then they say it's not winter. So yeah, never mind, we just write late summer over here. We own self know can already. All right, so during spring, early of the year, this is where flower usually bloom. Usually the weather is suitable for plant to grow. That's why we will say the vascular cambium is more active, because now it's more suitable condition. Okay, and you have more secondary growth. So guys, if your growth increase, which ring do you think I will form? Will I form the thicker one or the thinner one? Thicker one or thinner one? Which one do I form? If you grow more, yes, of course, it's thicker, right? And the color you can see is brighter. So write both. Brighter is mainly due to more water, because if you grow more, you absorb more water, because your color is brighter. When compared to the year-end one, is the opposite. So as it becomes colder, the vascular cambium will be less active, there'll be less growth, and the ring opposite, since it's not much growth, you don't grow a lot, your xylem will be thinner. Plus, there's less water inside it, it will be drier. Yes, that's why it will be darker. Just like when the leaf dry already, they become brown color, darker color one, right? Same thing, lor. Understand? So that, but okay, let's say this they ask essay lah. I see before they show like that, and they ask or explain how do we estimate the age of tree. So you can say by using something called the annual growth rate. So you explain this already, same thing during spring, blah, 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 which will give you around 3 marks each. Okay, then one more. So this one will give you 1 mark. You mentioned the name. Then the last point you have to say, right? Because you mentioned how the rings are formed, right? You still haven't explained like the age. How do I count the age? So you can say every alternate. I forgot the exact word with that. Here. You can write this. Okay, every alternate growth of thinner and thicker xylem vessels represent 1 growth year. Yes, so that's what we explain now. Alternate means thin dark 1 year, thin dark, thin and thick 1 year, thin and thick 1 year, because the thicker one is beginning of the year, thinner one is at the end of the year. So thick and thin 1 year. So just continue that. Oh. 1.3. Okay, done already. Sorry, we haven't do question yet. What am I thinking? Then I copy finish already. Okay, we look at question, secondary growth question. We start with question okay, 2, you can see the drawing one, same as just now. So you draw yourself. Okay, this question you can try yourself. And we do question 3. Labeling. Super simple. Now, 2.1 shows a cross-section of a eudicot roots undergoing primary growth. Name part L and M. Okay, can you tell me what's L first, guys? L is what? L. L is the... Hey, why got... primary or secondary is what? See carefully. It's primary, guys. Why got people, quite a few say secondary? Primary is inside, ma. Xylem, primary one is always inside, ma. So here's your ring. Xylem is inside. So secondary closer to the ring, primary further. Phloem also same. Secondary closer to the ring, primary further. So the inside one, of course, is primary, ma. Okay, yes, plus the question state primary growth. Exactly. That's why this is definitely just primary. There's no secondary. Because this is, if it's secondary, right, it will look like this, ma. Secondary like this, right? Completely different. Right? So this is, so secondary, right? You must look at it. If it's secondary, you must see this phloem. Secondary, right? Phloem will be outside here one. So obviously it's primary lah. Now M is pointing here. M is a part of the root is this. The flesh. So the flesh is what? Cortex. Yes. Function of K. So K is pointing at what? Can you guys tell me? Is the primary phloem, right? So phloem lah. Phloem in general does what? Doesn't matter if it's primary or secondary. Right? Phloem, yes, transport organic substance. So don't ever write transport food. I say many times already. Organic substance. Next. The eudicot plant undergoes secondary growth. Explain the secondary growth process experienced by the roots of the eudicot. But now this is just 2 marks, so you don't have to explain like the whole thing like we did in front just now. 2 marks only, ma. And we focus on primary xylem, secondary xylem, not the inner ring, because we have 2 rings, right? We have inner ring, outer ring. So we just focus on inner ring, can already, 2 marks only, ma. So the inner ring called? Inner ring is called cambium ring. Okay, but we write the general name can already, vascular cambium. So cambium ring, this word, right, we only will use it in essay actually when explaining the whole process. So other than that, you just write the general name, vascular cambium, good enough already. Undergoes mitosis to form outer inner law, which is secondary xylem and secondary phloem. Next, you can also say, no matter what plant you are, as you undergo secondary growth, you will become thick, right? So you can say, and causing the root to increase in diameter. Okay, now this one later we draw lah, when we go through the growth curve. Okay, so we do another one first, fast. Can I guys this one? Okay, okay. All right. Page. One more we do Okay, this one 27. In class, we go do this before one. Never mind, just try one more time. Name tissue X and Y. Tissue X, Y, tissue X, Y. So X, okay, see carefully. X pointing what? Fast. Come. Faster a bit. Then we won't feel sleepy. Come. X is this. Again, must say what phloem. So very obvious, there's two phloems here. So make it a habit. When you do this kind of growth question, if you say go growth one, must primary, primary, okay? Primary, lower. Why they're pointing at this and this? So which one you should write? Cambium ring or vascular cambium? We write vascular cambium. Like I say, vascular cambium is the general name. So we will use vascular cambium. Okay? Yes, vascular cambium. Like I say, unless we are explaining assay, then only we will say vascular cambium, mitosis, form cambium ring. Other than that, we don't need to mention that. A2, explain the role of tissue Y in diagram 2 above. All right, so we just only did just now, right? Vascular cambium, what does it do? First, undergoes mitosis. Yes. Same as just now. To form what? The outer and inner tissue. So what's the two outer and inner tissue form? I'm sure you can do it, right? Secondary what and secondary what? Come, do. If you don't know, ask, but I'm sure all okay. Come, right? Let's go. Okay, next, come. Name the type of growth in diagram 2. Again, this one so easy lah. What growth is here? You can see become thicker and thicker one secondary growth law. Easy lah Secondary growth. Right, wrong already. Up here. Now, two importance of the growth in B1 to plants. So what's the importance of secondary growth? Secondary growth got two importance, right? So number one, the default one, yes, increase the diameter of plant. Some more? Form what? Provide mechanical support. Okay, yeah. From mechanical support can, yeah. So you can say form wood to provide mechanical support. And we explain a bit. So wood is the one that makes it strong, basically. Explain the pattern formed on the stem at the end of this tree if it's in a 4-season country. So what pattern? What pattern are they talking about? What pattern, meh? What's the pattern? Who can tell me? Yes, the pattern, Jacqueline, correct. It's the ring. Yes, Felicia also correct. The ring is the annual growth ring. The bright and dark ring. So you're going to name the pattern. So that is the pattern, annual growth ring, the name of it. You right? Bright and dark pattern, ring wrong. Okay, then we're going to explain. Now, since it's just structure, you can see one mark for each ring. So don't have to explain too much. You just need to mention during what season got what kind of rings. Good enough already. So, for example, you say during spring, you can skip the vascular can be more active, more secondary growth than heart, and straight say bigger and brighter. Don't write rings, xylem vessels are formed. more marks, like let's say 4 marks question, mean you need 2 explanation each, or let's say essay, you of course have to add during spring, the vascular cambium more active, then you got more secondary growth lah, huh? But since it's just 1 mark explanation, we don't need to write that. So sometimes we can answer the question smartly. The question just like 2 marks, you just have to write 2 more. 1 mark, just write 1 point. Okay, so the opposite, during summer, what kind of rings do we get? Theater. And darker. Again, not rings. I remind you one more time, silent vessels. Okay. Easy, right? Okay, then let me see. What about this one? We see this. That's your next page. 2.2 with the question shows a longitudinal section of a root tip, and 2.2b shows the process which takes place in zone K. So what do you think the process shown here? Is it 2.2b occurs in 2.2a zone K? So what's the process is showing in the diagram 2.2b? Is it winter? I'm so late summer. We follow textbook. The textbook says summer, late summer. Which because I scared write winter question teacher don't accept. Because textbook they write summer. Like I told you just now, summer is a bit wrong. We write late summer or better long. Follow textbook. Okay. Then here, 2.2b. What process is this diagram showing? Do you guys know what is it or not? Yes, it's cell division. Yes, it's mitosis, correct? So here, if you look closely, right, they are showing actually different phases of mitosis. Like for example, you have anaphase, the cell splitting. You have metaphase, all the cell aligned at the equatorial plane. You have telophase, the nucleus split already. So this is actually mitosis. The zone K, by the way, is the first zone, right? The zone of cell division. So yes, the process shown is basically mitosis. The importance we mentioned already, to increase the number of cells for growth. But since they are showing root, we can say it to increase length of root. It's the same thing we did just now. Okay, so even though you don't know what is this, but they mentioned zone K, which is like the first zone, there's only one process that occurs at the first zone of cell division already same. So cell division, not mitosis. And this, who can tell me what is this, by the way? This is not any zone, but it's an additional thing that covers the root tip. Yes, correct. This is called the root cap. Okay, just protect the root tip one. All right, back to notes. Last part already. We finished this part. Do maybe just 1-2 more questions, then that's it. Go home sleep. I mean, you can just rest. Okay, now page number 8, 1.3 growth curves. So this part, right, is called type of plants based on life cycle. Now, because right here, right, the question, they always ask type of plant, type of plants. When they say type of plants, right, you all might think type of plants go, what type of plants? So you need to see carefully. If the question asks life cycle, or they say, or it's a growth curve question, then these are the 3 types: annual, biennial, perennial. Annual means 1, biennial means 2, perennial not means 3, perennial means more than 2, means 1 year, 2 years, more than 2 years. That is their lifespan. Annual means they only have 1 year lifespan, so they grow within 1 year and then dies. Biennial, 2 years. Perennial, they take more than 2 years to grow, so they can live usually very long. Some 5, some 10, some even up to 100 years. So usually these perennial plants that have longer lifespan, they're all woody plants. As look at the last point here, they say they're the only type of plants that undergo secondary growth, but not all. Okay, most of them can, but not all. And since the first 2 plants cannot undergo secondary growth, they therefore don't have woody stem. They're actually very small. Because why did you undergo secondary growth? Because secondary growth takes many years. To form a woody stem, it takes many years, but you grow, you live like 1-2 years, then die only. There's no time to secondary growth also. So the examples, annual plants, usually their shape is like that, whereby the most common example is corn and paddy. Other than that, you have pea. Yeah, you know what I'm saying, right? This shape in your plant, like a wheat shape like that. Other than that, you have pea and watermelon, green pea, and watermelon. Now, biennial, the example, we just memorize this few can already, because in our SPM standard, right, you won't ask a lot of biennial examples. So you just remember cabbage, carrot, and maybe you can add one more radish. So usually plants that grow on the surface of the soil. Okay, carrot, radish, cabbage. 2 years. Perennial, basically all woody plants. Like any woody plants that you can think of. Okay, Meranti would be the harder example. So Meranti is an example like those kind of trees whereby we use their wood as timber, like your furniture. Hard, strong punya wood, usually like Meranti, Jati, oak. But this kind of example, like it's so hard to remember, right? Maybe for some of us, like it's so weird, the name. So, do you guys know any more simpler example? Nah, that's your own. Because usually, what else can we write? Okay, I'll give you a hint. Usually, the fruits that we eat come from woody plants. Woody are perennial. So, example of fruits that come from woody plants. If you manage to name me, then that's the example. What? Durian, some more, a lot. Mango, rambutan, papaya, so many. Banana is not, banana is not woody, so banana is not really a perennial plant. Okay, so durian, mango, rambutan, is few. All right, so let's start with annual plant first. So for annual plant, the most important thing and the most common thing they like to ask is explain what happened in the growth in these zones. So you have 4 zones over here. They'll divide it into. So you only have 1 sigmoid curve. So by the way, just that you know first, annual plant will have 1 sigmoid. Biennial will have 2 sigmoid because 2 years. And perennial, just now we say already, annual series of sigmoids. So for annual plants, right, Zone A and Zone D will be the most important one. That's what question will usually ask. But behind, if you look at my questions, right, I got one essay asking about Zone B, so which they have possibly to ask also that question. Yeah, but never mind, we do A first. Very important. Okay, if they ask you to explain growth at each of the stages, talk about the dry mass first. The mass. As you can see at A, number 1, the dry mass decreases. Why? Why when they first start grow, the mass decrease? Human baby is grow big one. Why did it grow small? Yes, Felicia, very good. Exactly correct. Yes, Jacqueline, correct. Yes, Shen, very good. So it's germination. Okay, so now if you don't understand what happened here is a seed, when they germinate that time, every time we look at them, like last time in primary school, you play the green bean, you plant that time, right? When the seed germinate, right, the seed will then start to shrink and then leaf will come out like that. So why does the seed will shrink? Because inside is basically food. Seed don't have leaf, they don't know how to they cannot photosynthesize to produce their own food one. So they will absorb the food inside to grow. Just like when you're inside your mother's stomach that time, you also cannot find your own food one, you absorb food nutrients from the placenta. So this is like their placenta like that. Understand or not? So we will say the food storage in seed is used for germination. And we add one more point. The seed coat will drop. So you can say dispersal of seed coat occurred. So as the seed becomes empty, then the skin will drop. Seed coat. Coat, C-O-A-T. Explain the growth at stage B. So this year I'll give you 5 marks. Okay, so we know the mass then start to increase. As they say, because the plant carry out photosynthesis, causing the growth rate to increase. But before we mention photosynthesis, right, now you can explain a bit why suddenly they can photosynthesis and grow a lot. Because as you germinate, right, what you start to form? Yes, they start to form leaves. Very good. Mention the leaf first. You got leaf, you become heavier, of course. Then you photosynthesis. When you photosynthesis, so 1, 2, 3, you can produce glucose. Then the growth rate increase. Give you another point here, number 6. Sorry, a bit messy. Sugar are always produced in excess. So the extra sugar that you will store it. That's what caused them to be even heavier, because they're meant to increase even more. So excess glucose is stored. You know, they store in their leaves, store in their starch storage organs. Also got no. Then C, just like human, once you grow until a certain age, you become mature, you cannot grow anymore. So stage C, remain constant. Growth rate 0 because plant already mature. Explain the growth at stage D. Okay, this is the important one. So just like stage A, the mass decrease. Now I know this is 1 year already, they will die in the end, but don't say the mass decrease because they die. That's not the main thing, the question why. But before they die, what they need to do? So okay, besides dry mass decrease, right? What happens at the end before they die? Aging rate of the photosynthesis decrease is not the main point. I want you to remember this one first. If essay they ask other points, then we write that one lah. Pretty sure. But the main thing is what they do. They shed leaves, correct? And most importantly, yes, in 21, correct? They disperse seeds. Yes. So remember, since their lifespan very short, before they die, they got one very important mission, which is to make sure they can reproduce for next generation. And in order to do so, they need to produce seeds, produce fruits. So dispersal of fruit and seed occurs. And then only we say leaves shed. Then you can say aging occurs, but usually these 3 will be more than enough already. Okay, the leaves start to dry and then they shed. That's why when paddy about to harvest that time, their leaves all become yellow because the leaves starting to dry, starting to shed. Yeah, that's what caused the mass to also decrease. Once the seed drop, they'll be even lighter, then they die. Then only they die after that. All right, biennial, next one. Now, biennial, one of the least asked one, because biennial is like nothing special. They won't ask you the zone by zone again, because it's the same thing that happens here. So they won't ask the same thing. They will usually test you on that. And here, the most they will ask is just ask you to explain what happened at each year, each growth season, first and second growth season. It means first and second year, what do they do? Now, first year is just normal growth. Just like just like the plant, they got leaf, got photosynthesis, produce sugar, produce food. Now, before the second year, if you notice here, right, you can see this decrease over here. Now, who can tell me what happens here? They become dormant. Why? When they become dormant? Winter, correct? So this is end of the year. That's why just now in front of the annual growth rate, right? I will write winter. Because winter is where your growth not active. But somehow for just now the annual growth rate, right? If you look at your textbook, right, they write summer. So we just follow lah. I add the word late summer to make it more accurate lah. So here, winter they become dormant. So during the end of the first year, they will become inactive. And then second year only they continue grow a bit more, and then they die. But second year, right, they will mainly focus on reproduction. Meaning second year they will mainly form flowers, fruit, and seed. Then only they die. Okay, but yeah, assuming this biennial plant is in a 4-season country, then yeah, they'll be dormant during the between the first year. But let's say if this is occurring in Malaysia, then of course there'll be no dormant. The growth curve will probably just be like that. Okay, so number one, we can say during the first growth season, the plant forms leaves, carry out photosynthesis, and most importantly, food is stored. Why this one important? Because next year, they're going to use this stored food to produce reproductive organs or reproductive structures like fruit, flower, seeds. So second year, we write that the food stored is used to produce these three things: so flower, fruits, seeds. Continue. Last one, perennial. So for perennial, the usually will ask this. So besides asking the name of the growth curve, which is called annual series of sigmoid curve, they will ask you this. Look, every year you have sigmoid repeating, correct? But then the question asks, why is there increase and decrease of growth every single year? So it's the same like the annual growth ring like that. Annual growth ring is affected by seasons. So because the growth is affected by seasons, same. So you can see every year is beginning of year they increase one. And they decrease during the end of the year. So it's also because of spring and winter affecting the growth. That's why the growth curve like that. So by the way, remember, primary growth usually occur like first year like that. Then second year onwards will be mainly secondary. Okay, so why is there an increase, decrease? So it's like writing the seasons off. So this one we write 2-mark explanation each lah. So during spring. Now this one don't need to be too specific. You don't have to say what vascular cambium and secondary growth, because this is not asking about the ring. Because ring, right, is mainly secondary xylem. That's why we need to talk about vascular cambium and secondary growth. But for this one, we just talk about growth in general. So during spring, you can just say condition is more suitable. Hence, add one more for you. You can say there is more photosynthesis and growth rate increases. And then the second one, can you write yourself? So here we can use the word winter now. This one is literally at the year end, so it's definitely winter. And opposite of condition is how? Less of. Photosynthesis also less, growth rate decreases lah. Okay, you write this first because I want to get water, so you got no water already. So you write this. Once you're done, you can try to do question 1, the first question. First, then I'll come back and do with you all lah. Okay, go. Let's continue. Done already, Okay, let's look at page number 19. Continue this one. All right, so like it's a recap of everything we just did today. So number one, A, name tissue P and Q. So look carefully here, this diagram. So you have plant tissues, meristem tissue, and permanent tissue. So P is apical meristem, right? So you got lateral here already, ma. This one's apical law. Can ma? And then Q, ground tissue, vascular. What's the other one? So you got vascular means xylem phloem, ground is the support one, and then the surface one. Yeah, epidermal. Now, one tissue that forms vascular tissue. One tissue that forms vascular. Okay, so what's inside vascular? I just only mentioned only, right? Vascular got what tissue? There are two tissues inside vascular. One and what? Xylem phloem. Correct. Josiah and Sishi, very good. Xylem phloem. They want one only, right? So either one will do. Now name the type of plant R based on its life cycle. So read the question carefully, based on life cycle. So what will plant R be? So it's a mango, right? It's a very thick and woody tree. So yes, this is a perennial plant. Two differences between plant R and S. Okay, so plant R and S got two differences. Number one, you can talk about the life cycle punya difference first, law. Right? So life cycle means how long they live. Right, ma? So, oops. 1 year this year. So one year one and many years. Okay, but don't say live for 1 year, live for many years. Now I want you to write like this. Plant R, which is perennial, right? Okay, you can say the growth occurs for more than 2 years. And then you can say plant S. You can say live for 1 year, or you can say complete its growth within 1 year, or life cycle within 1 year. All right, and another one. What difference if I point this part? Yes, woody, non-woody. So plant R got woody stem, got woody tissues. Plant S don't have. And then now we can do this one already. If you look at page 21, finish already at page 21. Can say 1 secondary growth, one doesn't. Yes, you can. So the same as the wood, that one undergoes secondary, one does not. And also. C. Now we can draw this one already at page 21. So they ask you to draw a growth curve for eudicot plant in 5 years. So, okay, I've already mentioned this, right? Dicotyledon plant are basically perennial. Because dicotyledon, right, their leaves are all like that one. Right? Like mango tree, the big trees that you see, right? So eudicotyledon are plants, they are perennial plants actually. They can undergo secondary growth. So therefore, what you're going to draw here, know what you're going to draw here or not? You're going to draw the annual series of sigmoid curve. So basically every year like that, so you decrease, then go up, Wait. Yeah, yeah. Okay, I draw again, you see, so it will go up already, then we come. So don't draw so many again. So when you come to the beginning of the year, you decrease a bit, then you will go up, then go down, then up, down, up, down. Okay. That's how question might ask you to draw one for the perennial. So this is how you draw a sigmoid curve and S-shaped curve. Okay, so just now earlier today, right, when I did this question, I found out something not very good about this question, right? If you look at page number 28, 29. So for plants, right, the growth curve, right, they won't ask you to label name the stages. I know in human, they ask you to name the stage, right? But in plant, there's no naming of the stage on your face. So actually, this question is not legit, not applicable for what we learned here. So others you can try to do, but these two you just ignore it. Okay. Then okay, we do this one. Besides the two questions that we ignore here, right? You can see it. Suggest two reasons why the rate increased rapidly. So at phase X here, you can see they say the growth increased here. Okay, why? So what does a plant do here? 2 marks only, I don't need to explain a lot. So why the growth increase? Because when it comes here, yes, got photosynthesis. So why can photosynthesis? Because can form leaves already, right? Yeah, correct, exactly. So we can say leaves are formed. And then rates of photosynthesis increases. So therefore, more sugar, more glucose produced. So the growth rate increase. Okay, then we continue to here B2. So A1, B1, we just ignore these two. Now, why plants stop growing during phase Y? So why they stop growing? So just like human like that. Why at a certain age we stop growing? Because we have reached maturity. Correct. The plant reaches maturity. Then what else can we say? Oops, sorry. So like human, we will say the cell division only occurs to replace dead cells. Okay, but for plants, right, we can say they use the food storage to basically start to form fruits and seeds already. So a bit different in human. Okay, human, we will say cell division only occurs to replace dead cell. Means you don't have additional cell division. But for plants, right, because they're going to die already, this 1 year only. So you can say the food storage is used to produce fruits and seed. All right, almost we do this one, then I think we do 1 or 2 more, then that's it already. 2 more after this we do 2 more. 2 more Okay, come. Let's see here. Predict what will happen after phase Y. Okay, so they draw halfway only, right? There's actually 1 more phase after Y, right? So after Y, what will happen? What happened at phase Y? Phase Y, what happened? The dry mass decrease, right? Then they ask us to what will happen. Yeah, we say the dry mass decreases. Because they start to leaves shed, but most importantly, on the right, disperse the seed, because reproduce is the important thing here. So dispersal of seeds and fruits. Okay, so yeah, you can see some very straightforward this question basically. Okay, but now I don't want to do straightforward one. We do slightly difficult one. This one, page 32. Question 13, done. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Now, this question, we have a carrot and we have a hibiscus. First, what types of plant are they? So these are life cycle question again. Biennial. Okay, A is biennial, right? Definitely. But what about B? B, okay, B is the main one. This one we know already. In fact, we can mention already, right? But B there? Who can tell me what's B? Come guys, B. You all try a bit, see? What do you think is B? Hibiscus. So this is biennial, but then this one, annual or perennial, so left with 2 options only, right? What do you guys think? Annual or perennial? So if you ever see hibiscus before, right, do they die very fast? Or are they there for many years? Sure, you can see before, right? Our national flower. So maybe some of our schools will have one. So answer actually is the perennial. It's there for many years one. Right? It doesn't die straight away. And plus, you can see there's woody stem. And another thing is, right, hibiscus actually is a dicotyledon. See the leaf is broad one. So it's dicot. Dicot definitely is perennial one. Okay. If taken care nicely, yeah. But in general, their lifespan, okay, the flower might die, but after they will produce again. It's not like the flower produced already, then they die. Right? The flower produced already, the flower might die, but the whole plant does not die. They then can continuously keep on producing the flower. Right? So they are perennial, they can bloom many times. So 2 differences between plant A and B. So besides saying they are perennial and biennial, right? Okay, the first one, you can write the life cycle, which we did just now. Live for more than 2 years, complete within 1 year, 2 years and more than 2 years. Another one also, the woody and non-woody, got secondary growth, no secondary growth, same as just now. Okay, so you can write back the same thing. So got secondary growth, got no secondary growth. B got secondary growth. And then the woody, non-woody, complete within 1 year, more than 2 years. That one you write yourself, same thing. Okay, let's do another one. A, complete their life cycle in 1 growing season. Do you agree with this statement? Justify your answer. Guys, agree or not? Yes or no? Correct or not, this thing? Correct or not, they say like that? Is it correct? 1 growing season only. Correct, ma? Yes or no, guys? Oh, we go to NLD, come on, faster. Yes or no? No, right? Yes, definitely it's not correct. You really see what biannual plant ma just now? So bi, how can it be 1? Bi is 2 years ma, so no. So you can say because plant A is a biannual plant which completes its life cycle within 2 years, not 1. Now, which plant does not die after flowering? So very obviously, perennial or the biennial, A or B. Definitely is B, right? Because just now we said, The flower die, but the plant does not die. So next year can produce another flower and flower and flower. So obviously it's plant B. So you can say because plant B have longer lifespan, which is more than 2 years. We know that. So which means it can produce flower, fruit, seed many times, right? Like durian tree, every season one durian, next season another durian. But not necessarily this all of them got fruits, but in general, yeah, they can produce flowers, fruit, seed continuously non-stop. So hence it can produce flower, fruits, and seed many times. And okay, let's just do one more. Last one already. This one question 11. Can I, because plant B is perennial plant, have longer lifespan only? Cannot. You write perennial plant, actually no marks one because you only explain. So you must say why longer lifespan, so you can produce flower many times. So cannot just say like that. Sorry. Now 11, question 11, page 30. Identify the type of plant that shows the growth curve as shown. So this one very simple. You can see this chapter is actually very, very, very easy one. You can see here. This is basically perennial don't need to think . Okay, finish this quick. 2 examples of plants that have growth curve shown. So what are the example of plants we mentioned just now? You mentioned Meranti again. Okay, Meranti. The fruits will be the easier one, right? If you think these names very hard to remember, durian, mango, especially these 2. The most common one we have here. Hibiscus. We just mentioned hibiscus, right? Yeah, of course, can. Hibiscus also can. Explain the type of growth that occurs from the 2nd year onwards. So the 2nd year onwards is what growth? 2nd year onwards. So there's only 2 growth we learned today, So 1st year is what growth? Then after that, 2nd year onwards is? Yes. Alright. Secondary growth. And then explain. So secondary growth does what? Increase the diameter. So you can say which increases the diameter of the plant. Next, last one already . Estimate the age of tree. Come count. 1, 2, 3. How many? Actually, this one we did before. Actually, the same, exactly the same stem here. Actually, so it's actually how many years? So actually, you got to count the inside one also counted. So it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, 10 years exactly. 10. Because first year is primary growth. Primary growth also need to form xylem. So the first one is, this one is the first year . That's why it's counted . Right? Describe the formation of its annual rings, same as just now . During summer, also during spring, there is more growth. So therefore, condition more suitable, So thicker lor. So you must say during, okay, right? Last one, during spring. Okay. Or 1 mark only, you don't even the right condition more suitable these things. You just have to say thicker and brighter. That is xylem vessel. Sorry, remind you one more time. Not rings, must say xylem vessels. For the rings one, for the sake of following for the sake of the textbook thingy, so we write late summer, not winter. Okay, so for rings, we write late summer instead of winter but correct one is supposed to be winter. Okay, so opposite law, thinner and darker. Xylem vessels are formed. Okay. Yes. So once you're done with this one, I think we call it a day lah. Today is just until here only. Okay. So the remaining questions you can try to do yourself. All right. So especially chapter 2 lah. Of course, definitely today we didn't do chapter 2 at all. So for chapter 2, behind the questions, or try to do yourself, there are answers in front. And like I say lah, for chapter 2, there's a video for you here to watch. And I got cover some of the questions behind inside the video one. So you just need to scan this QR in my YouTube channel. Then yeah, like I said, if you don't want to watch the whole chapter 2 video, if you just want to study, let's say photosynthesis, I also got one specific video for regarding photosynthesis on my YouTube. I show you here lah. You just have to come to my YouTube channel here. Then you scroll down. See, scroll down. There's one playlist here, photosynthesis. It's right there. And you can see all. So answers are here lah. Answers also don't need to go very fast. Scan here, got answers already. Okay. So if no questions, then today's until here lah. Okay. Bye bye. Hope you learned a lot today. Bye bye.